Hello everybody and welcome back. Tonight we go to Pentland and I would like to thank Gary Richards for allowing me to share this account with you. And it's a life-changing experience when he was camping in the Pentland Hills in 2011. First of all, thank you for allowing me to share my experience. What follows is my true account of what happened to myself and my friend Andy in late August, early September 2011. I have attached two images. One is the map of Benally with a red X marking the camping spot, and the other is a picture of the reservoir with a red X marking the camping spot there. It was late August, early September in 2011. I've been an avid camper most of my adult life, and I have a small group of close friends that I go into the Pentland Hills with, and we usually go to the south of Edinburgh into the Greenbelt. But on this occasion it was just me and my mate Andy. The focus of the trip was to get to our camping spot, and it's just northeast of Benally Reservoir. And we were going to enjoy the very rare warm weather and have a couple of cans, a fire, some good food, and just enjoy being out in nature for a few days. The hike from the bus stop in Benally is quite arduous as you are climbing several hundred feet, in all around 2 miles. We had two full packs, each full of gear and supplies, and it took well over 2 hours as neither of us are very fit. We got up to our usual spot around 7 p.m. and our camping spot is to the left of the public footpath, heading southwest through the hill range, about 250 yards from the path. And we always camp in the same place, right at the end of the tree line, which is down a man-made embankment. The spot is great because there's little wind and there's a small stream for fresh water, and directly to the south is the start of a very dense pine forest, which is pitch black even in the height of daylight. To the southwest is open land that leads to a very scenic and beautiful reservoir, which is surrounded by pine trees. And to the northwest there is a very small pine forest, which I would estimate is only around 2 hectares, and at the bottom of this is the area where we set up camp. We both have one-man tents, which we set up around 3 metres apart, with the entrances facing one another. We gathered firewood from our forest floor, using dead dry wood, and built a fire about 5 metres due southwest of camp, so the embers wouldn't set fire to our tents. After having a couple of cans and some food, it was already starting to get dark. We'd planned to get up early and walk up to the triangulation pillar to watch the sunrise, which neither of us had done before. This time was around 9:30 p.m, so we shut the camp down and entered our tents with a hot drink each in hand, and we chatted about life and how much we enjoy nature for about an hour. And by this time it's dark, but the dull glow of the fire provided a small amount of light. I didn't bother hanging a torch in my tent, but Andy did. He then decided he would read for a bit, and I was so tired I decided just to get some sleep. Andy left his tent wide open, bug screen and all, but I closed my tent off completely and turned over to go to sleep. Around only about 5 minutes had passed since I turned over to get some sleep, when a very strange sensation started to come over me. It wasn't tiredness, more like a light weightlessness, and here's where things get weird. My mind was yanked out of my body like some giant vacuum cleaner had sucked me out, and I found myself floating about 12 feet above my tent looking down. This was an incredibly unsettling experience, and from investigations I've done since, this is called an involuntary out-of-body experience. As I was floating there, my attention was drawn to the dense pine tree forest to the southwest of the camp, where this very tall, dark figure started to emerge from the tree line. I remember thinking to myself, "Look, he's going on." I watched this massive thing walk straight past the fire and walk right between the two tents and into a small pine forest to the northeast, only about 50 yards from our camp. My mind awareness was yanked again, being pulled in the direction that this creature was going. At this point I was filled with a mixture of dread, confusion and curiosity. The creature walked into the tree line and I followed. But in the small pine forest, I watched this figure walk another 50 yards and come to a stop. I kind of floated down, so I was about 10 feet away from its mid-torso. The creature, turned around and looked straight at me, completely silent and still. It was difficult to tell scale, but it looked massive, but not bulky, more athletically built, all covered in black hair, so black. The facial features were hard to make out, but it had a cone-shaped head and deep-set black eyes. It stood on two legs and had very long arms. I don't know why I did this, but I tried to reach out to it for some reason, and I saw my hand stretch out in front of me and move towards its chest. As I moved closer, I focused where my hand was going and looked nowhere else. My hand touched its chest, and I could feel its coarse, thick hair, and I looked up and into its eyes, and it stared straight back into mine, and I didn't feel afraid anymore. There was an almost overwhelming sense of peace that seemed to move right through me at that moment. I was sucked back into my body like I'd been shot through a gun. Before I go any further, it's important to say I realise that this sounds fucking nuts, and if it wasn't for what happened next, I would have just brushed it off as a crazy dream. When I came back into my body, I snapped into consciousness. I was soaking in a cold sweat, and to my utter surprise, my mate Andy was shouting and screaming in his tent. I quickly opened up my tent to make sure he was okay, and what I saw was a wreck of a man staring back at me. He was as white as a ghost, and he said to me, "Did you just see that thing? It just walked straight through that fucking camp." It was at that moment I realised that I had not been dreaming, and that's when the panic set in. When we have never vacated a campsite so quickly in our lives, and we were down that hill in record-breaking time. We've talked very briefly about what happened when we got back to Vanilla, but when I told him what happened to me, he lost his shit, to be honest, and just about had a breakdown. After that day, I have never been back, and Andy and I have never spoken again. So there you have it, Deborah. Like I said, it's not your usual encounter, I would guess. But if you need any more information, please let me know. Many thanks, Gary Richards. Well, I know, and many of you know, that he isn't on his own, is there? Lots of us have had experiences out there in the woods. And if anybody's had an experience in the same area, or a similar experience to Gary, if you could get in touch with me and let me know. You don't have to go online, you don't have to go live, anything like that. We can just talk about it in private. But I think as we go forward with this, we're going to come across things like this more and more. And the best way to understand something is to talk about it with people who've experienced it, I think. And I would also like to thank Gary for some of the wonderful chats that we have had. And I'd like to thank him myself because I'm very good at telling people what to do, me, and not taking my own advice. But Gary made me look at things a few different ways. So, like I say, get in touch with me if you're going through something similar, because we can all chat amongst ourselves, and I'm sure between us all, we can make each other feel better. So until next time, thanks to you guys for listening, and thanks to Gary. Good night.